Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer. For this video, we're going to be going over 9 more very powerful builds on patch 1.13. A lot of these builds have changed via the recent patch, which was an amazing patch, by the way. We probably have the best build I've made yet for Euporia. It truly came out incredible. We are covering both of Radahn's swords in this video. I know people have been waiting on those swords specifically, so we got pretty good builds for both. It's going to be really awesome to cover both of these. I've been looking forward to that. They're really fun to use. We have lots of information on the recent patch 1.13, which once again was an incredible patch that added a lot of power to a lot of the DLC weapons. The Falx was one of them. We're going to go over an updated build for this incredible weapon where you can now change the direction to, which is awesome. I've ranked these in terms of fun and power. Later in the video, as I mentioned, I have a Euporia build that you're going to want to check out against Concert Radahn. It's going to be incredible. You're not going to want to miss that one. This is the top 9 strong and fun builds ranked on 1.13. We're going to start at number 9, the Greatsword of Lord, Radahn's first sword. So out of the two now, since the other one, which is going to be number 8, that one has been updated in 1.13. We're going to go over the changes there. This one didn't really change at all. However, it's still incredibly fun to pull off this Ash of War when you do, and you can get a good amount of damage out of it as well. Yeah, honestly, I like both of his weapons for different reasons, really. Now, this one has a very long animation on the Ash of War, but if you're able to get through all of it on certain bosses, yes, you can stack up a lot of physical and magic damage. I wish it did holy damage and had faith scaling, but it seems to be magic damage, which seems to be a theme with Radahn and magic damage and gravity magic and all that. But if it had faith scaling and holy damage like the fight, I think I would enjoy that a lot more. In a second here, we're going to go over equipment, stats, and everything you need to know for this build. And for equipment, we have the Greatsword of Radahn, Lord, plus 10 preferably, any seal for buffs. We have part of the Rakshasa set on for the extra damage here. We have the Shard of Alexander. We have the Ritual Swords Talisman. We have Melissa's Prosthesis, Magic Scorpion Charm, Magic Tear, and Faith Tear as well. Now for stats on this one, the stats for these swords, it's going to be all over the place at 150 because they scale with 3 stats. So we have 60 Vigor, 21 Mind, 35 Endurance. We have 45 Strength, 29 Dexterity, and 20 Intelligence. And that's for those 3 scaling stats. Up to 45 Strength, though, is the most, I believe, per point investment-wise. We're using Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. I gave myself a lot of endurance for these builds too. Now at number 8, we have the other one, which is going to be the Greatsword of Light. The difference here is this Ash of War, the Light Speed Slash, is actually chargeable. Now in patch 1.13, they did change something which is awesome, and we're going to talk about that here. So the Holy Beams initially that followed up with the Lightspeed Slash were doing really low damage and scaled with basically nothing. Now they're going to scale with weapon level and I believe intelligence to a degree, and you can get a lot more damage out of them. You get good poise damage out of this Ash of War too, and right now I think this one is now the better of the two. And it may just be personal preference, but I find this one easier to land. I love the fact that it's chargeable. You get a good amount of posture damage. You can get in some posture breaks. And now that those follow-up beams have the increased damage that scales with the weapon level and all that, and I believe your stats to some degree, it's a lot better. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Greatsword of Radahn, the light version, preferably plus 10. We have any seal for buffs. Once again, part of the Rakshasa set for the extra damage. Shard of Alexander, Ritual Swords Talisman, Godfrey Icon, this is chargeable. Magic Scorpion Charm, Magic Tear, and Faith Tear as well. And we'll go over the stats briefly for those using this timestamp. It's going to be the same as last one, though. 60 Vigor, 21 Mind, 35 Endurance, 45 Strength, 24 Dexterity. We have 20 Intelligence, 25 Faith with a Faith Tier. And then, of course, we're going to be using Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for our buffs. I want to show one more cool thing you can do with Radahn's swords. So, if you equipped one in one hand and another one in the other, and I'm on PC, I use Xbox controller, though I use an Xbox controller on PC. It's going to be LB, you'll get the two-handed moveset instead of RB for the two-handed moveset, L1 and R1 if you're on PlayStation. And you could switch between the Ashes of War, and this is a really fun way to run the weapons, where you could just quickly switch between using both. And you can basically turn into Radahn. At number 7, we have the Horned Warrior Sword. On patch 1.13, the damage on this Ash of War was increased, and since it's very spammable, really easy to use, and the weapons do a decent amount of physical damage on jump attacks, this is definitely a good build. Yeah, the fact that they increase this damage, and it's so spammable, you could use this on mobs too, it's perfect for them. Any boss that takes increased holy damage, there's a lot of them in the DLC as well, will take good damage from this weapon, but overall this weapon was improved with the recent patch 1.13, and I really like it. Let's jump into equipment, stats, everything you need to know. And for equipment, we have the Horn Warrior Swords +10. We have any seal for buffs. We have part of the Rakshasa set and Divine Bird Feathers for the increased jump attack damage. We have the Shard of Alexander, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Claw Talisman, Melissen's Prosthesis, Holy Tear, and Faith Tear as well. And for stats on this one, this weapon has Faith scaling. That's going to be most of what you use with your Ash of War. So we went for 60 Faith. We have 45 Dexterity. That's with the Faith tier, by the way. We have 60 Vigor, 19 Mind, 28 Endurance. You don't need a lot of Strength for this weapon. And though it is a little bit quality, it leans more towards Dex. And I didn't want to have to split 3 stats again like the Radahn swords. We're using Golden Vow and Hellish Fury to increase the Ash of War. And next up here at number 6, we have the Falx, if that's how you say it. This weapon is now amazing because guess what? It was good before, but in patch 1.13, it's even better now. You can now change the direction throughout using the Ash of War, making it easier to navigate through the entire thing. And while I'm not sure if this is the best curved sword in the game, it's definitely one of the best. Seppuku obviously changes things, but as far as this weapon goes, I'm not sure it needed a buff, but the extra buff and directional change is a nice addition and makes it even more overpowered, the jumping equipment. And we have the Falx +10 preferably, any seal for buffs, Rakshasa set for additional damage. We have the Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Wing Sword Insignia. We have Melissen's Prosthesis, and then we have the Thorny tier and Faith tier as well. And now to jump into our stats, we have 60 Vigor, 18 Mind, 28 Endurance, we have 30 Strength, and 65 Dexterity. Should max around 60 Dexterity, put a little bit of points into Strength, it's a bit quality. We have 25 Faith with the Faith tier, and then we're using Golden Vow and Flame Grimmer Strength. And next up here at number 5, we have this Shadow Sunflower Blossom, I believe it's called. This is an amazing weapon, by the way. This is a really fun strength and faith weapon. It does a lot of holy damage. It's honestly great for DLC, and after trying this one out recently and finally making a build for it, I kind of love it. So this one didn't change at all in 1.13. I just wanted to throw this one in here because I ended up having a really fun time after making a build for it, and people have been asking for this one for a while now, and yeah, it turns out it's really good. This is a very good bonk weapon. If you're looking for a strength and faith weapon, it has really good scaling for that too. I believe it's going to max out with something like a B in strength and maybe a C in faith, so it's literally the definition of a strength faith weapon, so perfect for anybody that's looking for those types of builds. And if you're at a higher level, you're going to get an insane amount of damage out of this one, especially in DLC. A lot of bosses take additional holy damage, including the Boar Rider we're facing now. Also, be sure to comment below, what's your favorite weapon currently in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree? What's your favorite DLC weapon specifically that you found so far? Be sure to comment that below. I'm curious as to what your favorite weapon is in the entire DLC. There's the Ash of War, which is incredibly fun to use, and the charge attacks. Let's jump into equipment and stats. And we have the Shadow Sunflower Blossom +10, B in Strength, C in Faith. We're using the Erdtree Seal, Rakshasa set. We have the Grave Bird Armor on for the jump attack, Shard of Alexander, Claw Talisman, Two-Handed Sword Talisman's excellent here, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Holy Tear, and then we have the Strength tier as well. And for stats on this one, of course, we're going to heavily invest in both Strength and Faith. Now, I leaned a little bit more towards Faith so you can throw in different things like incantations and get more holy damage out of it. Keep in mind, when you're two-handing this with the Strength tier, you're going to have a lot of Strength, well over 50 Strength, so it's going to be solid there. And we're just using Golden Vow and Hellish Fury for this awesome holy bonk build. This is a really fun one. Try this one out for sure. And next one up, I think, is the only other one on this list that really didn't have any change whatsoever, and that's the Putrescent Cleaver. But I've been having so much fun with this. I made a better build, a more optimized build for this one, and I'm going to go over the different things you can do with this weapon as well. It really is an incredibly fun weapon to use. So the charge attacks do massive damage, but you have an option with the Ash of War for this weapon. You can start it and then continuously use it over and over again, or you could use the charged attack afterwards to get 3 very quick spins that actually can build up on successive attacks. You're going to see that here. And yeah, it ends up being pretty impressive. The other thing that's really cool about this weapon is there's actually a delay after you use the Ash of War to hit the next button. You have a lot of time to decide what you want to follow up with this weapon, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, I'm going to say that I highly recommend the Putrescent Cleaver now. The more I use this weapon, the more I like it. I like its charge attacks too. They build up a lot of posture damage. They do a good amount of damage. It's got some innate frost on it too, so that's a plus. It's a little bit hard to proc, but you can get there if you get enough hits in. Also, gotta ask, is this the best patch we've had for Elden Ring so far? We've had some good patches, but this one felt like it really fixed a lot of the weapon issues with the DLC, and I feel like a lot of this stuff just plays so much better now post-patch. I really like what they did basically with this entire patch, where they looked at a lot of the weapons and said, hey, these really need buffs. The community seeing that, we're seeing that, and then they went ahead and fixed a lot of them. Yeah, it's like if you've been out of Elden Ring, I recommend hopping back on just for this patch alone, trying out a lot of the weapons. This isn't one of them that I'm talking over, though, ironically. We have the Putrescent Cleaver plus 10. We have any silver buffs. We have the Rakshasa set on for extra damage, Shard of Alexander. We have the Blade of Mercy in case you get critical hits. The Hippo's hard, though, because you have to go all the way around to his head. Then we have the two-handed sword talisman, Melissa's prosthesis. We have the magic tier and faith tier as well. And we're going to go over stats for this build, and we have 40 strength. That's going to be 60 when we two-hand, because we're going to get a 1.5 times bonus when you two-hand with your strength stat. We have 45 arcane, 25 faith with a faith tier. We have 60 vigor, 18 mind, 28 endurance. We have 19 dexterity. That's with Melissa's prosthesis. Then, of course, we're going to be using Golden Bow and Flame Grant Me Strength as our buffs, and I highly recommend trying this weapon out too. It's awesome. Next up here, we have a Savage Lion's Claw build, which was buffed in 1.13. This time, we're going to be using Guts Greatsword in Cold Affinity with Phrasia's Greatsword in our offhand for the passive boost to Savage Lion's Claw. So what changed here? What was the big change? Well, guess what? Now it does more poise damage on the first hit, and it does more damage on the first hit as well too. This is an excellent build now. As far as regular Lion's Claw, they're still really close. I think regular Lion's Claw still might be slightly better, but this one for me is more fun to use, and it now does more damage and more posture damage than it did before, and for that, that's a huge bonus for something that really didn't need a buff to begin with. Another one like the Falx that just kind of got a buff, but hey, it worked out. It makes it better, and it makes some of the DLC bosses easier using something as crazy as this. And we got to beat up Berlana there a little bit too, which was fun. She's a really challenging boss, by the way. It took a couple tries for that. I'm kind of learning her again now, just like I learned Radahn recently, learning a little bit more of her moveset. Really fun boss to fight once you kind of learn what she's able to do. She is challenging, though. In a second here, we're going to jump into equipment, stats, everything you need to know for the Savage Lion's Claw build. And there's the chair behind me. We have the Cold Guts Greatsword, Phrasia's Greatsword in the offhand. This is the only one I didn't hit 51 poise because the equipment load is just, there's so much going on here. Shard of Alexander, Ritual Sword Talisman, two-handed Sword Talisman, Arsenal Charm +1 or Great Jar's Arsenal if you have it, Strength tier and Faith tier. Yeah, our weapon equipment load is like 40. It's insane. We have 60 vigor, 21 mind, 35 endurance. We have 66 strength. That's going to be 99 when you two-hand this. We have 15 faith. That's 25 faith with the faith tier, 14 dexterity. We're using Golden Bow and Flame Grant Me Strength. If you have Great Jar's Arsenal, you should be able to hit 51 poise with probably around 40 endurance if you're able to hit that. Especially if you're at a higher level, it should be easier. It's worth noting before we get into number 2 on this list, which is a Blasphemous Blade Rain of Fire build, that Savage Lion's Claw, like Lion's Claw, has basically infinite hyper armor. If you're mainly using the Ash, you don't really have to worry too much about poise. And here is Rain of Fire, which was buffed in patch 1.13. I added the Blasphemous Blade because I wanted to turn it into a really good and useful DLC build, and this will absolutely be that for you, no question. But we've added in the Godfrey icon as well. We're also boosting fire for both the Blasphemous Blade and Rain of Fire, and Rain of Fire's damage is finally quite good. And yeah, it definitely deserved this. The fact that we all know that some of the stuff just felt like it was completely bugged damage-wise, and they fixed this. It is quite good now. You could add it. You could use the Fire Knight Seal, which is what we have to boost the damage on. I think it's going to be like a 15% boost as well. Rain of Fire is much better now and a pretty solid incantation. By the way, I haven't actually beaten this tree avatar yet without using fire. I've been pretty much using fire every time. I'm going to have to learn him without fire. He takes 40% increased fire damage like any of the other tree avatars in the game. And yes, I'm one of those people still saying Scadu Tree because I can't for the life of me remember how it's supposed to be said. I don't know if it was supposed to originally be Shadow Tree or something. I mean, that would have made more sense. Maybe it's just me. But anyways, we were able to take him down. Well, actually, we're not taking him down yet because he's got one more phase. Yeah, I almost forgot there. But anyway, yeah, you have to defeat him 3 times. If you get into critical hit, by the way, I believe it takes off like roughly, I don't know, what is it, a quarter of his HP the next time he forms. And that could be really helpful, so try to get in that critical hit every time you can because having that HP off in each phase is super helpful. Now, Blasphemous Blade there, if you hit him in the head, he takes even more damage on top of the increased fire damage. You get the head hits in with the Blasphemous Blade, and you're going to get 10,000, 12,000 damage. It's pretty insane. All right, after we grab this grace, we're going to go over equipment stats, everything you need to know for a Blasphemous Blade Rain of Fire build. And we have the Blasphemous Blade plus 10. We're going to be using the Fire Knight seal for the passive boost to Rain of Fire. We have part of Rakshasa set on for the damage boost. I think the Fire Knight armor boosts the incantations as well. Shard of Alexander, Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon. If you're just using the Blasphemous Blade and not Rain of Fire, switch to the Ritual Sword Talisman. You'll have an optimized Blasphemous Blade build. Talisman of the Dread, Flame Tier, and Faith Tier 2. And for stats on this one, we have 60 Vigor, 22 Mind, 27 Endurance, we have 22 Strength, so we can single-hand the Blasphemous Blade, 15 Dexterity, we have 75 Faith with the Faith Tier, giving us a lot of Faith for the incantation. And then we're going to be using Golden Vow and Halashaburi to boost the damage on both. We have Rain of Fire, of course, and we are going to be mainly using the Blasphemous Blades Ash of War. And now to our number one build, the Euporia build or Euphoria build, however you want to say it. Some people are pronouncing it Euphoria, some people pronounce it Euporia. The other day I called it Europia by accident because I wrote it wrong and read it wrong. But anyways, for this build, it's amazing. We built this around charge attacks instead of the quick hits, and man, the charge attacks do a lot of damage. On Radahn here, if we're able to fully hit the charge attack, up to 7,000 damage. And that's going to get us right into phase 2 as well, and we're going to be able to use the beam here because we fully charged it with a couple of charge attacks and a few regular hits, and we got 13,000 damage to start phase 2. He's got 40% holy resistance in phase 2 as well, so that's pretty impressive right there. And by the way, if you notice, I'm staying really close to Radahn. We didn't do any parrying this time. If you want the parry guide, though, that's in the description below. If you want to learn how to parry Radahn, it is incredibly rewarding. We're just beating him, though, with charged attacks, being patient, staying close to him to avoid the extra holy damage. And soon he's going to come back down and do his meteor attack. You're going to run away from this or jump twice in the middle. Sometimes he comes back down, but that's a little bit risky because if he doesn't, he will land on your head. So I accidentally hit the wrong button there. That was pretty obvious. And then we're going to continue to hit Radahn here as much as we possibly can, and then possibly try to use the beam one more time. There's double slash, an awful move, but yeah, only move I don't enjoy of his, by the way, that I'm learning everything and still don't know how to time that one well. And then, of course, we get this lovely clone move as well, where I'm going to get hit by this. Let's see how we do with this. We dodge at the end, dodge back into it, and we're able to dodge most of the damage there simply by rolling once, delaying, and then rolling again. And, of course, we're able to finish off Radahn with a beam, which would have amounted to a total of 11,000 more damage. Now, there is one thing I want to talk about with Euphoria rather, after we go over equipment and stats, so hang with me for that, and also hang with me for the ending. We're going to jump into equipment now. And we have Euphoria plus 10, we have the Erdtree seal, and then we're going to have the Divine Beast head for some extra stats, Two-Handed Sword Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Axe Talisman, Holy Tier, and Spike Crack Tier. Went through that a little bit too fast there. Let's jump into stats. You can actually slow those down when you're watching them on YouTube, though, and then just see each one individually. We have 60 Vigor, 21 Mind, 30 Endurance, 19 Strength, 19 Dexterity. We have 70 Faith, which is pretty incredible. It's going to give us a lot of damage on that Holy Beam. And then we have Golden Vow, Halashaburi. We're using Blessing's Boon. I'm going to go over additional incantations like Multi-Layered Ring of Light and the Golden Arcs here in a second, which essentially you can add to it because you're boosting holy damage. Alright, and we're going to show what you can add to it. Without changing any talismans whatsoever, still using the same ones, we're able to use Multi-Layered Ring of Light for really good damage and Golden Arcs too. This is going to fit the build because they're pure holy damage, and it's just going to add on to the build, give you something additionally you can do with Euporia. And in the next clip after this one, I want to talk about the Shard of Alexander. There's a couple people wondering whether or not the Shard of Alexander works on Euporia post 1.13. Apparently it was commented somewhere, so we're going to go over this real quick, whether or not it works. I am on 1.13. First, we're going to do it with the Shard. Yeah, I've gotten a couple of the same comments regarding this, saying it's not working on 1.13. There we got 1100 damage with the Shard of Alexander. I tested this like 30 times, by the way, with the short and then the longer beam, and we're going to see how much damage we get here without the Shard of Alexander. We got 1018, which is going to amount to about 15% or so less. And the first one here is going to be with the Shard of Alexander on the longer beam. We're going to see how much damage we do. I want to make sure the light stays on there. We've got the longer beam here. You can tell by the Euporia weapon being very, very lit up. Let's see how much damage we get here. And we're able to get 3,221 damage with the Shard of Alexander. All right, now we're going to get rid of the Shard of Alexander. We're going to hit the dragon, which is going to take about 10 times. Half the times before patch 1.13 that you need to get the long beam. It used to be like 20, and then we're going to use it again here. All right, we're going to see how much damage we got this time without the Shard of Alexander, and I did this several times. There's 2,700, almost 2,800 damage. Again, 15% less from 3,200. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. There was a lot of fun and good builds in this one. We also hit 40,000 subscribers. I want to thank everybody who's been subbing to this channel. If you're not subbed yet, be sure to hit that sub button. We are now at over 40,000 subs. It's incredible. I cannot believe it. I want to thank everyone. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you so much. I will catch you guys in the next one. Cannot wait. New Game Plus 7 builds coming soon.